Check, 1, 2. Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to the August 16th, 2021 Board of Health meeting for the town of Chatham. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify me. Thank you very much. Before we get started, we have a statement that Judy would like to make regarding the governor's edict.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's June 16, 2021 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of the March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until April 1, 2022, this meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted in person and via remote for public participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410, conference ID number 960-971-593#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible.
Thank you, Judy. Tonight, we have 5 agenda items, so let's get started. The first agenda item is a variance hearing for Madeline Gifford at 105 Orleans Road, and representing her is Down Cape Engineering. Daniel Ojala, are you on the call, Daniel?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board, and Judy. My name, for the record, is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport, and helping the folks here out with at 105 Orleans Road, the Giffords, with a pretty straightforward upgrade. This comes in under maximum feasible compliance, wherein you do the best you can with what you have on a given site. This particular site is decent sand, but we are burdened by a wetland that's in the back of the property. It drops off. The house is a walkout of the back. We're raising the plumbing. We're able to pick the plumbing up a little bit. Right now, the pipe is lower and in the back, and we're able to pick it up a little bit. And the existing system was quite deep. Modern systems like to be a little higher, so they breathe better, within 3 feet of grade. So it does look like we're going to be able to raise that plumbing up. We'll come out the side, a couple of cleanouts into a tank. And you can see from the plan, we've got that leaching field tucked as tightly as we can to the northeast corner, away from the wetland. So the variance is it's 94.5 instead of 100 off that wetland, and 16.8 off of the full basement versus 20, which is normally required. So those are the 2 variances. They fall under Title V and the Chatham Health Regulations. SAS to BVW is 100 to 94.6. State, of course, is only 50, so it would meet that. But the SAS of the foundation is a state variance. That's to 16.8. And I assume you have a regulation that mirrors that. But if in any event, that's the request, to tuck this system up into the northeast corner. The Conservation Commission looked at it with us last week, I believe, and did approve the plans. So would certainly appreciate your concurrence that this is a reasonable request, falling under maximum feasible compliance, without compressing the road layout of the neighbors. It's pretty much the best we can do. There is a little strip out here. It's about 114 inches down. There's a layer of silt loam, and the wetland in the back, I just estimate it's a perched groundwater table, because we're not too far from the ocean, and that's 60 feet above sea level. So that would be a perched situation. So we'll punch through that layer of clay, provide a nice clean conduit down to the true groundwater table, and we wouldn't anticipate any problems. The existing system did last a good number of years, but it is now tired and in need of replacement. So that's our request. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Yeah, this is
It's a
Noble.
bad habit I have. I'd like to ask for any board members who have any questions or comments for the applicant, please.
Yeah, this is Noble. The old system was a Title V system as well. Did it fail, or just, what's the reason they're replacing it?
Yeah, it didn't pass an inspection, is my understanding. It was a 78 code system, so it is under Title V, but not the more modern system that would have under the 95 code as amended.
And so is all the old system being removed?
Correct, yeah, we're exactly in the spot of the old one. It's kind of ghosted in the background a little bit there. It's a little hard to see, but the tank is pretty much where the D box is. And the leaching, we believe, is right underneath where the new leaching is. So that'll all get stripped, mucked out, and removed as part of the operation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Ron? It's pretty straightforward. It's a good thing you're doing, or the applicant is doing. I've got no questions. It seems to be a good thing, so. Any other comments or concerns? If not, can I get a motion to approve? We have a motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Ed, put on your thing. Press your button.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Judy.
So,
We have recommendations, conditions to put on this motion. Judy, can you please read them?
just three. The applicant should restrict this property to a maximum of 3 bedrooms and record this restriction on the deed at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds. The applicant shall submit a copy of the executed deed restriction to the board. The engineer shall submit an engineered as-built plan, including as-built elevations with a written certification that the system has been installed in accordance with the approved plan, and no alteration to the floor plan of the dwelling will be allowed without further review by the Board of Health or its agent.
Thank you. Is anybody from the public want to comment on this motion before the board votes? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries unanimously. You're good to go, Daniel.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, let's move on. Number 2, a variance hearing and approval of IA Technology for Peter McIsaac and Dominique Mass McIsaac. Parcel H99 along Wood Valley Road. J.M. O'Reilly and Associates is the engineer representing them. Do we have John O'Reilly on the call?
Good afternoon, Chairman John O'Reilly. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Very good.
Great. We're here tonight, or this afternoon, for the McIsaacs. They are trying to build a 2-bedroom home on a vacant lot on Wood Valley Road. The reason we're here is that the lot, which was created through subdivision control many years ago, is sized at 14,700 square feet. This is in a zone 2 and is subject to 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet. And what we've done is we've proposed a denitrification unit and showed a 2-bedroom home. And in doing the math, the denitrification of the sewage does allow for the 2-bedroom home, and we are proposing to deed restrict that as well. All other facets of the sewage system are compliant with both your local regs and Title V. Be happy to answer any questions. We will be going back to the site to extend the soil testing to verify that we do have permeable material. I've reviewed the soil of the area and feel very comfortable in proposing that. But you'll see that as note number 20 on the site plan. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
I'm embarrassed to say, I wasn't sure where the lot was. Did anybody else have a problem finding the lot? I mean, I drove up to the end of that road and I saw houses all around, so.
It's on an uphill slope. I think it was on the left just before you get to the circle.
That was the entire lot on the left?
Yes.
14,000, yeah, 14.
Okay. I saw that hill, but it looked like the front part of a house.
Think.
Okay, so that was it on the left, okay.
That's it. The lot is about just about 150 feet, has 150 feet of frontage, so, and it is right before the cul-de-sac on the
Gotcha.
left, as a gentleman said.
Dick?
Yeah, I have some concern with the plan. This is a very small lot. And this house, although it's 2 bedrooms, on the second floor, there are 2 bathrooms and a full bathroom on the first floor. And it looks as if it's really going to be used for effectively 3 bedrooms. You know, that family room on the second floor is going to have a lot of sleeping done it, because otherwise, why do they need 3 full baths. On the second floor, there's a shower and with bedroom 2, and then there's bath number 3 that has both a shower and a tub. And on the first floor, there's a bathroom with a shower. So it just seems that the flow of sewage from this house is going to be substantially more than for an average 2-bedroom house. And then given that it's on such a small lot, it raises a real concern. I mean, although it says 2 bedrooms, why would you have 3 full baths in a 2-bedroom house and 2 full baths on the second floor with just 1 bedroom?
Can I, unfortunately, we have to count bedrooms, not bathrooms, so it's.
Right, but we have to take into consideration the estimated sewage flow.
Yeah, but that's based on the number of bedrooms, so, I mean, I get it, I mean, I saw that too and thought, why do they need a full bath up there, but, we don't usually, we've never, counted bathrooms before. And the family room can't be defined as a bedroom because you have to walk through it to actually get to the bedroom.
Oh, I realize that, but we also need to try to make sure that there isn't too much sewage flow from this house to this tiny lot.
Well,
So they,
we go by Title V, which tells us to count bedrooms, and we have a definite definition of a bedroom, so that's how we do it, so.
John, do you have any
Well,
insight into the
Yeah,
layout?
I can only add a comment in that the first floor full bath is tied into one of the first floor bedroom. And the second floor full bath is also tied into a bedroom. And then you have the third full bath that enters, you can gain access through the family room. There is it looks like a half bath on the first floor for guests. So the thought process, I think, and I haven't had a specific discussion with the McIsaacs about this, was, the folks that are staying in the bedrooms will have their own space, bathroom facilities, and then any guests would use the third full bath. For any guests that would be in the house. And I think in looking at the floor plan, I think you do have 2 areas definitively defined as bedrooms, and I don't think the family would meet the definition of a bedroom. I guess that's all I can add at this point.
oh my God.
So it would arguably then be the second floor, number 2 bathroom off of the family room would really be there for when guests come and they sleep in the family room.
Or they enjoy the day at the beach and they want a shower.
Mm-hmm,
And clean up.
right.
Yeah,
I think we
it's,
all have an occasional person grab a spot on the couch, and certainly that would be as well. So that would be available for that type of guest as well.
Bob?
well, I was just going to say, as Judy said, sometimes we look at these and it doesn't necessarily make sense per se, but Title V allows us to only count bedrooms in determining the wastewater flow. And we've had this discussion, many times over the years with the state. You can have as many kitchens as you want, you can have as many bathrooms as you want, you can have as many music rooms as you want, and home theaters and all. None of that counts when we're counting the sewage flow. Being on Cape Cod, which is a tourist community, do we all think that there may be people sleeping in that family room on the couch or whatever? Absolutely, but it doesn't factor in when we go to design the septic system and account for the sewer flow. I mean, is it the ideal situation? Maybe not, but it's state Title V code, and it's been that way for decades. And it all comes down to, you have to do the best you can with the information you have.
So we're bound to give variances to the code? Because
In
they're
this-
asking for a variance.
In this case, you're granting a variance because it's in the Zone 2. If this was
Right.
not in the Zone 2, they would have 2 bedrooms by right. And, you know, based on the floor plan, the other rooms in the building do not meet the definition of a bedroom. So this isn't one of those cases where we have a room that, you know, we can have them open up the cased opening to 6 feet or something. So it doesn't meet the definition. I mean, looking at the floor plan, they've already done that. They've already accounted for all that. Do you have to grant the variance? No, you don't have to grant a variance. But I think if you're not going to grant the variance, you know, you'd want to have a real good, solid reason for not granting the variance.
I would also say that Title V does allow for these types of variance, so to speak, because they allow, as long as you're using this nitrogen reducing system that's been approved for this purpose, then the Title V has it right in their code that you can do this. So you're allowed to put more than 1 bedroom's worth of sewage flow on this piece of property with the IA system. Couldn't go more than 2. But it's all approved and it's right in Title V. So we're just basically approving the use of this IA system.
Yeah, there's no.
Noble.
Yeah, I think it says the board may grant a variance for the extra bedroom with the microfast system, not shall. So we have an option, but the board has, as I understand it, I'm relatively new to the board, there's a long precedent of us granting this variance unless there was some very special reason. So the board has a precedent of granting these variances, you know, for better or worse.
Ron, did you have a question or a comment before?
I don't like it either, but I mean, we are bound by the rules
Yeah.
and the law, and we have to do it.
Yeah, I would say we don't have to do it. It says we may do it, but we have a long precedent of doing it, so we're not about to change it without something, as I understand it, without some real good reason. Same
We
thing.
really can't be arbitrary, I think is what it comes down to. Any other comments or concerns? Ron?
This is something we may want to look into some other time. You know, things like this happening and everything. See what we can do to change some of them.
Okay.
I mean, the board could ask that they remove that bathroom if that's what the concern is. I'm not sure if it couldn't be, you know, objected to by them in some way, but you certainly could if you feel it's going to create an overuse of the property. But
Again, the issue is the size of the lot is very, very small. And do we have any idea why the prior system failed? It wasn't that old a system.
no, that was the last one. This is
Oh,
this
Vacant
is
lot.
new lot, a vacant lot.
oh, this is a new lot. Oh.
This is a vacant lot, so our regulations say that any 2-bedroom property in town any vacant lot in town can automatically get 2 bedrooms regardless of the size. However, since this is in a Zone 2 of a public water supply, has to meet the state's little bit more stringent requirements that they put in a nitrogen-reducing system on this lot. And if it was under 10,000 square feet, they wouldn't probably even be able to do that because the nitrogen-reducing system wouldn't give them the credit that they need. But because this is a little bit over 10,000 square feet, it meets the requirements. Instead of 440 gallons per 10,000 square feet, you get 660. So it's a little bit higher loading rate. So.
More questions, more comments? Can I get a motion to approve and a second?
A motion to approve with Judy reading the conditions.
Let me get a second first. Ed has a second. Okay, Judy, can you please read the conditions?
The applicant should restrict the property to a maximum of 2 bedrooms and record this restriction on the deed. The applicant shall sign a covenant with the board agreeing to comply at such time as the town of Chatham, through its Board of Health and Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners, directs the connection of this property with whatever wastewater management option specified for this watershed in adopted comprehensive wastewater management plan. The signed covenant and deed restriction shall be recorded at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds, and a copy of the executed covenant and deeds shall be submitted to the Board of Health. Throughout its life, the system shall be under an operation and maintenance agreement. The O&M agreement shall be in accordance with Department of Environmental Protection biomicrobic certification for general use, approved December 29th, 2010, revised March 20th, 2015. Total nitrogen shall be monitored, and a performance standard of 19 milligrams per liter is required to be met. Effluent shall be tested quarterly for the first 2 years and twice per year thereafter, after approval by the Board of Health or its agent. The applicant agrees to apply a minimum of 6 inches of compacted topsoil to all disturbed areas of the property. The engineer shall submit an engineered as-built plan, including as-built elevations, with a written certification that the system has been installed in accordance with the approved plan and Title V. No alteration to the floor plan of the dwelling or the engineered site plan will be allowed without further review by the Board of Health or its agent. This variance is granted pursuant to the State Environmental Code, Title V, and the Town of Chatham subsurface regulations. Is valid from 1 year from the date of the Board of Health approval. A permit must be issued and work commenced during that 1-year period, or the variance shall expire.
Thank you, Judy. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this motion before the Board of Health votes? Okay, hearing
Can I
none.
make one more comment?
You certainly may.
In some of the variance requests, we include the proviso that they need to connect to the sewer system as soon as the sewer is available, and that's not present on this.
This is an IA system, so they would have a right to use it
They
for
would.
10 years.
That
if they
makes-
wish.
That makes this even more, more difficult, okay.
Right.
We usually only put that stipulation in if we're giving them a variance to, like, continue with the use of a cesspool or something because the sewer is imminent. I mean, if they're ordered to connect, they will be required to connect. Well, on this one, because it's an IA, they do by right get 10 years, but most people just want to connect anyways, because it's quite costly to run these systems, so.
So, yeah. So they might opt to connect soon thereafter. Not necessarily true that they would wait 10, but they could if they wished.
Bob, do we know how long sewer will be in this area? Not to put you on the spot, but.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to think of. I'm gonna say probably 7 to 10 years. So,
Anyhow,
I mean, we probably won't have sewer there until they're close to that 10-year expiration date on, or not expiration date, but that 10-year grace period on the IA anyway. This is in an area that's not, don't take this the wrong way. It's in an area that's not highly nutrient sensitive, because it is more in the interior of Chatham as opposed to close to some of the estuaries and all. So it's in an area with longer travel time to get to the sensitive estuaries and all. And as you folks know, the IA system gives a reduced nitrogen load anyway, compared to a standard Title V. So if this lot were not in a Zone 2, as Judy said, it could have 2 bedrooms on a standard Title V. This is giving 2 bedrooms on a IA system, which from a nitrogen perspective is better for the environment, so.
all right, let me call the question. All in favor of the motion as made, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. You're good to go, Mr. O'Reilly.
Thank you very much, folks. Have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Judy.
It's a good question you raised, Dick, though. I thought it was very useful to hear that discussed, because I did not pick up on that, so. All right, let's move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is a variance hearing and approval of IA technology for Joan and Paul Parsons at 54 and 0 Crows Pond Road. Representing the applicant is Coastal Engineering, Sean Riley.
Good afternoon, through the chair. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon. We are here before you for a variance for one additional bedroom. The lot is very large, almost 80,000 square feet. It's just shy at 79,570. The prints you have for the dwelling that is to replace the existing dwelling has 7 bedrooms. So right now, actually, we don't need an IA system, but the applicant going through and making all these modifications to the property and all these improvements feels that he can just put the, or rather put the system in now to accommodate what may be in the future, a future guest house. What they would do is they would eliminate one of the bedrooms in the main house, which would provide them 1 bedroom to move out of that house into the guest house for a 2-bedroom guest cottage. They've got 2 children that are starting their own families, and they may want something in the future. So they're being proactive by getting the additional bedroom approved now and getting the IA system installed now, but only having 7 bedrooms. So we're here before you with a variance request under section 5.1 and 6.3 for the additional bedroom with the installation of a FAST system. And we are well beyond any of conservation's buffers with the installation of the system. The soils are good out there, and we have no issues with depth to groundwater. With that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Judy, is this an okay way to proceed in terms of the reserved bedroom?
Yeah, I noticed there was a pool, kind of a semi-pool house on this that I thought maybe they were counting as the bedroom, but it doesn't really look like a full pool house. But yes, if they're keeping it at 7 now, but they wanted design it for 8, the board does have to approve that. So I think that's acceptable if they're going to put the IA in to go forward. We'd have to look at the floor plans when they do propose the 8th bedroom in the future.
And where would the 8th bedroom go, the future bedroom?
They're considering constructing a new guest house. The lot is large enough to accommodate another accessory structure. So that would be over in the area where you see the blower unit for the FAST to the north end of the property in that open area. So again, they may or may not construct that, and we may just get the benefit of having the IA system installed. But to answer your question, it's to the north, would be another structure.
So the new house that's being built would have how many bedrooms?
The guest house would have 2 bedrooms.
But the new house that's being built
Has 7.
has 7.
Has 7 currently, correct. So they have a room down in the basement that they've labeled as a bedroom because it meets the criteria. They're going to be using it as a family room, but it meets the criteria. And they want the ability to sleep in that room. So, in the future, if they do construct the guest house, they would deconstruct that room, put a 5-foot cased opening in that room down in the basement, utilize that 1 bedroom plus the additional bedroom that we're getting with the IA to create that 2-bedroom cottage.
Okay.
So all of that would have to be reviewed by the health department when they would have
Yes.
to come back for another building
To
permit.
get that all finalized and approved?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Questions? Board of Health member questions to the applicant?
Yeah, this is Noble. So I only saw 6 bedrooms on the plan, but there's a 7th bedroom in the basement that's not in the regular floor plan here?
Yeah, so Judy should have received a revised plan for that lowest level
Right, okay. All right, so
that
that's where it is.
had that bedroom.
And
Correct.
let me ask another question, this is what I always ask. On the second floor, there's a loft, and there's a doorway in that's 4 feet 1 inches. So it gets to the question of what's an archway? What's an acceptable width to be an archway? To make it not a bedroom? That comes up time after time.
Let me take a quick peek. Does that require access through to get to another location? Let me just,
There's a
It's
loft.
the loft on the second floor, right across from the bedroom 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's variable depending on the building. I like to see, 5 to 6 feet.
5 to 6
This
feet.
one is,
Is that written somewhere, or is that just a sort of what we've done?
it's not written anywhere, and I think we've discussed, maybe making the definition a little bit more solid.
Time to do that.
Yeah, because 4 feet is close to a door. That's why
Yeah.
I asked.
It's a little wider than a standard
So
door.
we've asked before, can they make it a little bigger to make it a
Yeah.
real obvious archway?
Maximize it.
Right. We have done that, yes.
John? Can I ask
Right.
Sean a question?
Sure, Bob.
Sean, is that opening that we're talking about 4 feet 1? Because then it says 36-inch CO, which I assume might be 36 clear opening?
I think the 4-foot-1 is center to center,
Yeah,
wall to wall, and I think this cased opening is 36 inches.
That's it.
yeah. That's a door, yeah.
Yeah. Now, it looks tight, but that's an architect problem, that question, I guess.
And there's no way to
Yeah.
maximize without.
I guess,
moving.
yeah, I guess, even if I can speak with the architect before they construct this, but we could consider that a bedroom at this point. And have it, this is the 8th bedroom, and then if they do want to come back for the guest house, they'd have to deconstruct and provide you plans and evidence that there was a 5-foot cased opening, and I'll have a discussion with them and let them know that they're not going to be able to pick up the additional bedroom in the guest house if they don't have a 5-foot cased opening within this room.
All right.
I do have a plan showing the basement. Did you not have a plan showing the basement? It shows a bedroom with a full bath off a rec room. So it definitely would meet the definition. It's a walkout, space. So that would make 7 plus the loft area, the study upstairs. That would be the 8th, if that's what,
Right, so my question is, so if we would call the loft a bedroom at this moment, and then if they're going to do the guest house and add more bedrooms, they'd have to come back and be a whole new.
rearrange, right.
Or it might, well, they could open the arch.
And
Yeah,
the
they have to come
property
back
will
with
be
another
deed
plan.
restricted to 8 bedrooms as well, so, they're gonna have to.
I'm not sure I have this straight. If this loft is being converted to a bedroom because the doorway width is inadequate, that means we're using all 8 bedrooms on the new main house.
That's correct.
So if they want to build a guest house with 2 bedrooms, where are they getting 2 bedrooms?
They would have to come back to you with floor plans showing how the main house is being reconfigured
To
to
be
remove
6.
2 bedrooms,
Okay,
to transfer them over to the guest house. They could
Okay.
do that by reconfiguring that opening for the loft.
gain
To make
1.
it bigger, to gain 1. And then as Sean mentioned earlier, they could reconfigure the one in the basement
Correct.
to get rid of that as a bedroom, so to have 2 bedrooms to move over to the guest house.
Okay.
So you'd end up with 6 in the main house, 2 in the guest house, you'd still be at 8.
All right, thank you.
Or they could do 7 and 1 if they wanted to. If they only wanted 1 bedroom in the
Right.
guest house, they could do that way.
God forbid.
All right. I think I have it now. Thank you.
There's too much going on.
Other questions?
That's acceptable.
Other questions, other comments from board members? Ron, you're up.
Does someone from the building inspector or the Board of Health go back in after the fact and check that?
The building inspector goes in and they have their approved set of plans there, and their plans that I've signed off on. And if they see something that doesn't meet, they will come back and ask me. They'll tell me what's going on, and we'll look at the plans together and figure out. And it happens, yeah, occasionally.
All right. Are those yours or mine? That's yours. Thank you. I got mine. All right. All right, we do have a recommendation from the health agent to approve this with certain conditions, 9 to be exact. Do we have a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
Noble, second.
Okay.
With a stipulation that the room marked loft, we are counting as a bedroom, and with the bedroom in the basement. So all 8 bedrooms are now taken up with the current plans. So if they want to build another structure, that would be, they'd have to come back to the board.
Okay. That's clear. And we have, okay, and that's a clarification to your motion, Ed, and you accept that, okay. All right, does any member from the public wish to comment on this before the Board of Health votes? If not, I'll call the question. Yes, Judy, thank you for reminding me.
I'll just read the conditions. The applicant should restrict the property to a maximum of 8 bedrooms and record this restriction on the deed at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds. The applicant shall submit a copy of the executed deed restriction, and I will add that the room, the study on the second floor will be counted as one of the 8 bedrooms. The applicant shall sign a covenant with the board agreeing to comply at such time as the town of Chatham, through its Board of Health and/or Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners, directs the connection of this property to the municipal sewer when it becomes available. This covenant shall be recorded at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds, and a copy of the executed covenant shall be submitted to the Board of Health. Throughout its life, the system shall be under an operation and maintenance agreement. The O&M agreement shall be at least 1 year and may be with any Mass-certified operator of the appropriate grade that has received training by the company on the operation of the system. Effluent from the system shall be monitored at least twice per year for the first 2 years, preferably May and October. The effluent shall be field tested in accordance with Mass DEP standard conditions for secondary treatment units certified for general use, revised March 20th, 2015. In addition, a lab test of the effluent for total nitrogen is to meet the performance standard of 19 milligrams per liter shall be collected and analyzed by a certified lab. Water meter readings are to be provided with semi-annual report. If any of the field tests or lab tests fail, follow-up tests shall be conducted by a certified lab and an evaluation made by the operator within 30 days. After the required 2 years, testing application can be made to the board or its agent for review and possible modification of the monitoring requirements. The applicant agrees to apply a minimum of 6 inches of compacted topsoil to all disturbed areas. The engineer shall submit an engineered as-built plan, including as-built elevations with a written certification that the system has been installed in accordance with the approved plan. No alteration to the floor plan of the dwelling or the engineered site plan will be allowed without further review by the Board of Health or its agent. This variance is granted pursuant to the State Environmental Code Title V and the Town of Chatham Subsurface Sewage Regulation, and is valid for 1 year from the date of the Board of Health approval. A permit must be issued and work commenced during that 1-year period, or the variance shall expire.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, let's call the question. All in favor of the motion as made, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. You're good to go, Mr. Riley.
Thank you all for your time.
You're welcome. Okay, our next agenda item is a discussion regarding Chatham groundwater. And this was scheduled at the request of Debbie Ecker, who's here. Hello? Please come forward.
Oh, Deb, I think that, do you want him at the? Is it okay? Okay. This is the one you want me to use? Yes, please. Thank you.
Just get close to it, please.
Hello, my name is Deborah Ecker. I'm a resident of Chatham at 70 Sears Point Lane. Thank you for allowing me this follow-up to my testimony that I gave at your last board meeting. An issue which disturbed me at that meeting was the expression of opinion by members of your board that drinking water quality may not be a topic about which your board is concerned, that falls entirely under the Chatham's Department, Water and Sewer Department. Perhaps this was a misunderstanding on my part, but that this should be expressed at all calls, I believe, for it to be discussed again. Boards of health, unlike other municipal boards and commissions, are, as I have long understood, let me get this put away, to act as at the local municipal level under the authority of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts public health regulations. With that in mind, I draw to your attention the many sections of Chapter 111 which concern drinking water quality. Section 122A, Sections 160, 160B, 162, 164, 167, and Section 187. And in addition, in January of this year, the state published a message to water commissioners, and local boards entitled Rules and Responsibilities for Drinking Water Compliance and Coordination. The conclusion is that and this is in that report, those guidelines, that as your board's members indicated, that while primary responsibility is granted to the water commissioners, the guidelines, which were issued in January, include the provision that, I quote, that boards of health on issues related to the control of threats from inappropriate land uses within their watershed, through Board of Health regulations and bylaws and ordinance, they too are granted responsibility for protective actions. So with this in mind, that I'm presenting to you copies of the following, and following this, my speaking, I will hand these copies to Ms. Giorgio to distribute. One is an Excel chart showing the differences between what the Cape Cod Commission's water protection districts have allowed, and the other is a 2003 Source Water Assessment and Protection Report done by the DEP. In that second report, of commercial properties in Chatham, 7 of 10 were found to be hazardous. Of industrial properties, 3 of 4. Of miscellaneous, 3 of 14. The second document, which I constructed, shows the differences between Chatham's zoning bylaws and what the Cape Cod Commission's model bylaws for water protection districts recommend. You will note when you see this report, which I will be distributing, that there are major differences. For example, the Cape Cod Commission would prohibit the following uses which Chatham allows: airports, boat, truck, bus stations, gas and service stations, car washes, floor drains which discharge to the ground, underground storage tanks, uses that generate large amounts of sewage. And then in the land area, subdivision of land into more than 10 house lots, non-residential uses greater than 40,000 square feet, construction of impervious surfaces greater than 10,000 square feet. None of these are prohibited by Chatham, but they're all recommended by the Cape Cod Commission. The point that I'm making is that Chatham has a great deal at risk for its water quality because of the location of potentially toxic uses. We have the unfortunate circumstances, as I mentioned earlier, that many of these uses were allowed before the water tanks and the water and the pressure on drinking water quality came into being. But now that they're there, it means that there really needs to be constant monitoring. Your board and the Water and Sewer Department both need to be active roles in monitoring these risks. The step I request is that you would request that your board would request the Water and Sewer Department and the Select Board to undertake a far broader study than is ongoing now with the PFAS about the uses within our water protection districts, which are known to be threatening, and that you would work with these other boards, that your board would take an active role in working with these other boards and alerting them to the problems of the risks to Chatham's drinking water. Please participate in Chatham's need to protect our drinking water. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ecker. Comments, questions? You have a document that you're going to pass out to us tonight?
Yes, I have them right here on the chair, and I'm going to bring them over to Judy.
Can we have a copy of your statement as well?
I'd be glad to do that.
Thank you. It'll just help. We'll attach it to the minutes.
Right, thank you.
Let me at least clarify one of your initial comments, Debbie, suggesting that the Board of Health does not have a keen interest in the drinking water quality of the town, because we do. And we have broad authority to become involved in any issue that we feel has a direct impact on the health and safety of our residents. So let me reassure you that we are very much tuned in to the potable water program and the quality assurance for the water we drink. At the same time, I think when I made the comments I did, I was speaking about the Board of Health respecting the existing structure as it was laid out at the town level through the water, by respecting the relative roles and responsibilities that the water commissioners have as compared to the local boards of health. And we actually got an interesting document from Judy recently that clarified some of this. And it does reference some of these citations you made in terms of Massachusetts law. But it very clearly lays out that the water commissioners are directly responsible for taking action to protect the source water quality. And it does then acknowledge that they may seek assistance and indirect input through various boards of the town, including the Board of Health. So it's already woven in there that we have an opportunity to have input, and I don't think that's ever been a question in my mind. But they are primarily responsible, and unless the Board of Health members have a special concern, then my opinion is we defer to their leadership role, which is prescribed in the state statutes. Did I get that basically right, Judy? I mean, as far as you understand?
As far as I understand, yes. I had sent the board members a link today to, it's not what I handed out, it's what I sent the link to, and I also shared that with Debbie, which I think is some of the citations she gave came from that link. It does describe the role of the water commissioners and in association with the boards of health, as well as other town boards such as conservation commissions and zoning, planning, et cetera. So yes, I think you got that right.
When you talk about a far broader study, Debbie, specifically, give me an example of what you would like to see included in a broader
Well,
study.
what I would like to see is that the study that was just recently adopted to pursue the problems regarding PFAS that struck me, for example, as an opportunity to have made a broad, okay, this is an alert, people. We have some issues that have been identified about our water quality and some toxic elements. And we had these other reports from the past. It seemed to me that it was an opportunity to have a broader study of our groundwater and these other uses, and to what extent are those properties being monitored and are complying with whatever regulations apply to that use. I think that it was a missed opportunity, but it doesn't mean that it's missed forever. And you could expand it, or you could initiate a new study. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm proposing. Thank you for the other explanation, Mr. Chairman. I think that was useful also.
Well, you're very welcome. Maybe Dr. Duncanson can comment as to the scope of the current potable water testing that is being done routinely at all of the production wells that we have.
Yeah, I think there's two, well, there's probably more than two. As this board is well aware, the drinking water supply, the municipal drinking water supply, is tested rigorously for any number of contaminants under both the state Safe Drinking Water Act as well as the federal Safe Drinking Water Act. Things like bacteria are tested, monthly. Other contaminants, VOCs and organics and all, they're tested on a regular schedule, generally quarterly, at least yearly. And all those things are reported every year in the Consumer Confidence Report, as it's called, which is required by DEP. So every year, the town has to issue a report on all the testing that was done for all the various contaminants, and whether or not anything was found, and if it was found, where it was found, and the levels it was found. So that's been going on for decades, and that shows no signs of changing. And in fact, if anything, DEP on occasion, or the feds, add something to that water systems have to monitor for. And the perfect example that we've been talking about that led to this conversation was the PFAS. DEP implemented a new regulation last October. Systems the size of Chatham were required to start monitoring in April, which we did. That led to the detection above the maximum contaminant level in one well, resulting in the immediate shutdown of that well. And then since then, as you know, there's been discussions about what we're going to do in response to that, one of which is an assessment to try to determine the source, if we can, of the PFAS in well number 5. We have not started that study yet. We are talking to various consultants about the scope of that. We've had some recent conversations with a company or with an institute that has a new, not novel, but a new methodology where they can potentially fingerprint the PFAS contaminant, which would then help narrow down whether it's firefighting foam or some other kind of material. So we're having that conversation with them to see whether or not it's a potential method that we could use in Chatham. One of the issues that we have, or one of the concerns that we have, is the levels of the PFAS are so low, and, you know, anything above zero is cause for concern, but from a testing perspective, the levels are actually considered quite low. You know, we're talking in the 5 to 10 to 20 parts per trillion range, where this methodology that's been developed has really been used at other locations around the country where, you know, levels have been in the thousands of parts per trillion. So whether or not it will be effective at our low levels, that's still being reviewed by their chemists and the folks that developed it and whatnot. But at the very least, we're going to do a source assessment to see if we can potentially nail down where the PFAS may be coming from, and then if we do that, whether or not there's anything we could do to remediate it. You know, if it's so widespread throughout the watershed, not necessarily a whole lot you could do. But if we find one hotspot, for whatever reason, then potentially that hotspot could be treated to remove the PFAS. You know, in terms of expanding that into a larger study of many other contaminants, that's what the yearly testing and monitoring at all the public water supply wells is exactly designed to do. To monitor that for the broad range of contaminants so that you get a heads up ahead of time if any of those contaminants are going to create a problem. You know, luckily so far, and I think, well, I shouldn't say luckily, I think Chatham has done a very good job over the decades of protecting their public water supply wells. You know, we bought a lot of land around our wells, both within our zone ones, which is the 400-foot radius around the well where the owner of the water system, if you will, whether it's a municipality or a water district or a private water company, they have to own that property in its entirety so that they can control exactly what goes on in that 400-foot radius. And then in the zone twos, which are a larger radius based on the maximum draw into that well during drought conditions. You know, most of our wells are in protected areas where it's open space, it's forest. Clearly, there are areas in Chatham within our zone twos where there is development. And a lot of that is because that development preceded the zone two process. The zone two process is relatively new, only about 20 to 25 years old. You know, some of our public water supply wells go back to the 30s and 40s. So there are land uses within those zone twos that would not be allowed today. And Ms. Ecker indicated a number of those, things like gas stations and whatnot. There are gas stations in our zone twos because they predated the zone twos. We will not allow, under our Water Resource Protection District, things like gas stations to be built today. So there's that difference between what you can do today versus what is already there and predates it and therefore is grandfathered, if you will. You know, as one of the main people writing the Water Resource Protection District, you know, in the ideal world, we would have said to all those land uses that are inappropriate, you have to get out of there. But, you know, that's not realistic. So, you know, those are monitored. We do the required testing. If there are issues, they get addressed. And then for future, we don't allow those land uses to now come into the zone twos. You know, you will not see new gas stations being built in the zone two. You will not see a new wastewater treatment plant being built in the zone two. You will not see a commerce park type area with all the car repair shops and the boat repair shops being approved in a zone two. But yes, it does currently exist because it predated all that. And so, you know, those are difficult things. We can't just go down and say, oh, we're going to close down Commerce Park, you'll have to get out. You know, that government doesn't do that. But it is monitored to make sure that they're not causing problems.
Well, that was my question. So can you reassure us that, like a boat repair shop in, say, Commerce Park, does periodically get an inspection of some sort to go through an environmental assessment to help assure that they understand what they need to do in terms of preventing any future discharge?
There is not a specific inspection process per se. In other words, we don't go out once a year or once every 2 years or every 5 years or whatever. But they are all made aware of what their requirements are for use and/or storage of hazardous materials. The Barnstable County's had a program where they go out to locations such as that to make sure they are aware of what the requirements are. There's state requirements, there's federal requirements, there's fire department requirements. There's a whole suite. If you talk to the owner of these people, or these properties, they'd probably tell you there's too many. But there are a lot of requirements. Now, do we go out and inspect every day to make sure they're not doing something? No. I mean, it's just not feasible. But the flip side of that is we do have the monitoring in place that if something were to happen, and that's never a good thing because it's always after the fact, but
Right.
it is what it is. Ideally, we wouldn't locate those uses in that area, but they're there and they've predated everything else, so we just have to work with what we have.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think your question was right to the point, and really that, I would like to develop that just for another few words. And that is that what I hear Mr. Duncanson to say is that, one, that we have this water quality testing, which is perfect, wonderful, thank you. But do we have and then I heard him say that they issue, that your department or one of your departments issues alerts to the owners of these properties that have toxic uses. But I think your question was the important one, and it was the one that I have in mind, is there an active inspection program of the owners of these businesses, these commercial and industrial businesses? And that's what an expanded program or research or consultant could do, or maybe it should be even more of a regular activity of the department, of an inspection of each one of these uses that is listed as having hazardous uses, is that they're actively inspected and not just waiting. Once the chemicals are in the groundwater, that's going to be a very difficult matter. We want to make sure that there's actual enforcement and not just an issuance of what the standards are. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick?
Hi, can I ask a couple of questions? First of all, how large is Zone 2?
Zone 2s vary depending on the size of the well itself. And it's supposed to be based on worst-case scenario. So maximum pumping during a prolonged drought period. And so depending on the well itself, the Zone 2s can vary in size from, quarter mile around the wellhead to a mile around the wellhead. And that's why, and I can send the board a copy of our Water Resource Protection District map, where we've basically taken all the Zone 2s and put them all on one map, if you will. And so you see, it's about almost 50% of the mainland portion of Chatham, the interior portion, is within the Zone 2s.
Okay.
So it varies depending on the well characteristics.
We're pumping from a lens of an aquifer that is under Cape Cod. So my question is, what percentage of the water that we're pumping out of a well in Chatham is percolating down from Zone 1 and 2? And what percentage is coming in from the lens from God knows where? And so, you could have a pristine, area
Yeah.
around the well, but if you're digging a deep well and you're sucking water out of a lens of an aquifer, then that water's coming from Harwich and Orleans and Barnstable. And so
okay.
what percentage of the water that we're drinking is coming down as rainwater into Zone 2 and going down and getting pumped back up?
100%.
100%.
100%. Because if you remember, Cape Cod is a sole source aquifer, meaning we don't have any rivers or reservoirs. So All the drinking water on the Cape comes from beneath our feet. But within that sole source aquifer, there are 5 groundwater lenses. There's a lens down under the Mass Military Reservation. There's another lens under the Yarmouth-Dennis area. There's the Monomoy lens, which we share with Harwich, Brewster, and Chatham predominantly. There's the Pamet lens, which I think is Provincetown and Truro, and then there's another one kind of in between there. So we're only drawing water from the Monomoy lens. We're not drawing from the MMR, we're not drawing from the Pamet lens, because they're separated by, in most cases, what we would think of either an estuary or in some cases what we would consider on the Cape a river, which aren't really rivers per se, they're groundwater fed. So what we're drawing here in Chatham is only coming from the Monomoy lens. Now, you're absolutely right. The Zone 2s for Chatham are not just in Chatham. They extend into Harwich. They go almost all the way up to Route 6. So when we're pumping our wells, you could be drawing water from anywhere in Chatham or in Harwich, potentially. Not Orleans, because we've kind of got Pleasant Bay that kind of is a boundary line there. But, you know, a particular well is only drawing from its Zone 2, if you will. And depending on, you know, how, you know, the computer models have estimated how big those Zone 2s are under worst case. So it's not like, you know, you're pumping this well 365 days a year, and at some point it's drawing water from somewhere else. That doesn't happen. If that happened routinely, it would be part of its Zone 2. So each well has got this kind of round circle around it that it's drawing that water from.
But if you had like a Venn diagram of these Zone 2s, they
Yep.
pretty much encompass all of Chatham. So if you were to say, well, we're not going to have any more gas stations in Zone 2, there would be no gas stations in Chatham.
Well, the Zone 2s are primarily within the Route 28 area. They don't extend, our Zone 2s don't really extend south of Route 28 or east of, I'm trying to think in my head, say east of like the Schoolhouse Pond area. So you don't get a Zone 2 that's all the way under Main Street in downtown. You don't get a Zone 2 that's in North Chatham, you know, up north of Route 28 or Nickerson's Neck or anything like that. All right, it's a pretty well-defined area. And when we did our Water Resource Protection District, which is based on the Zone 2, we actually added a 200-foot buffer around the Zone 2 line just because of the uncertainty. We said, we want to make sure that we do maximum protection. So, you know, the computer model said the line is here. We actually put a 200-foot buffer further out, just to be sure, because of the fact that that line is computer generated, and, you know, it's not an absolute, you know, survey line, if you will. So, yeah, you could have new gas stations and all in Chatham. They would just be in areas that are outside the Zone 2s.
More questions, comments, board members?
Yeah, I have a question, Bob. On the PFAS, does that ever totally disappear in the ground, or what
No,
happens
the
to it?
problem with PFAS is it's considered a forever chemical
Yeah.
because it does not break down naturally. So once it's in the groundwater, that's why it creates such concern. Once it's in the groundwater, it doesn't dissipate over time naturally. You know, we have other spots, things like gasoline, diesel fuel, those kind of spills, they will naturally degrade over time. There's actually bacteria that feed on them. And in fact, for some cleanups, that's what they do. They inject bacteria into the groundwater to hasten that process. Those things break down naturally over time. PFAS is what we call a forever chemical. It does not. And that's why it's causing so much concern, not only here, Massachusetts, in the United States, but around the world, just because it doesn't disappear.
Okay, I have one other question. If that's in our ground and it's going to be there forever,
Yep,
okay, does it move around?
yes.
So it could be anywhere in any one of parts of Chatham?
Right.
Near our drinking
It
water?
moves
near
around with the
anything.
groundwater. And, you know, the prevailing groundwater movement on the Cape is a foot per day. Generally, the Mid-Cape Highway, Route 6 is the dividing line. Everything north of Route 6 gradually flows to Cape Cod Bay.
Huh.
Everything south of Route 6 gradually flows to Nantucket Sound. So depending on where it is, that's kind of which direction the regional groundwater flow is in. Now, when you have a water production well, you can change the regional groundwater flow direction because you're pumping all that water out, and when you pull it out, you get what we call a cone of depression. So here's the ground surface, here's the bedrock. It's all filled with water. As you pull, you get a cone that comes down. So you're pulling more from the surface than you are deeper. And so you can actually, if the prevailing groundwater flow direction, say, is to the south to Nantucket Sound, right in the area of where you're pulling all that water out of the ground, you can actually have the groundwater flow the opposite direction because it's all going towards that well because you're actively pulling water out. And that was one of the issues that we had with the Indian Hill well. That was one of the issues that led to our comprehensive wastewater management plan. Because back in the 80s, sorry for the history lesson, but back in the 80s, DEP was concerned about the Indian Hill well, which is right out behind us here at the annex, pulling contaminants from the then unlined landfill. Because you get this cone of depression where you're pulling water into the well. And DEP said, well, if you pump that well under maximum conditions, you can change that regional groundwater flow to the south, and you could conceivably pull some landfill contaminants towards Indian Hill well. All right, and it was exacerbated by the treatment plant, which is right next door. So that was one of the critical things that caused DEP to tell us, you need to do a study to see exactly what's going on and where that plume from the landfill may go. Now, subsequently, the landfill was capped, which prevents rainwater from going through the trash material and potentially leaching contaminants out. But, for years it was uncapped, and so the rainwater had done that. So there is a plume under every landfill, not just Chatham's, but under every landfill. Right now, it's continuing to move to the south with the regional groundwater flow. And that is also monitored. We have a bunch of monitoring wells all around the landfill. We have monitoring wells downgrading into the landfill, and those are tested on a regular basis to make sure there aren't any contaminants in that would cause concern. Chatham's a little bit better off than some communities because we've got municipal water to 98% of the town. So 98% of the properties have access to the municipal water system. Doesn't mean they're necessarily on it yet, but the mains are in the street. Other communities where everybody's relying on wells, such as Wellfleet, up until they finally voted to put a system in, they were the last town on the Cape that didn't have a municipal water system, so everybody was on wells. They had a lot of concern about people that were down gradient of their landfill because there were contaminants, occurring that then were being drawn up into individual wells. So that, that's the history lesson, if you will.
All right.
I have one more question. If I consume some of this PFSA.
You need to put your mic on.
Yeah,
Mike?
if I have some of this PFAS stuff.
Yep.
And I drink it, get it into my body, what will happen?
That is that's the other part of this discussion that there is less knowledge about. And that is, what are the health impacts of drinking water with PFAS in it? We know that PFAS can cause a variety of health concerns, internal organs, can be affected like with any contaminant. To what extent that would happen at the low levels that we're seeing, remember, there is no national standard for PFAS. EPA has a health advisory of 70 parts per trillion. So they say anything above 70 parts per trillion is potentially problematic. Massachusetts and a number of other states have lowered their levels. Ours is 20. Other states have gone even lower than that. But what we don't necessarily have an absolute good sense on is if you are exposed to water, say, with those kind of levels in it, what does it do to your chances of coming down with some condition? You know, cancer or liver disease or whatever. You know, the chances that I've seen are extremely small. Doesn't mean they're zero. I mean, I'm sorry, folks, we're alive. There's no such thing as zero. Everything has a risk. But the question is, you know, and then the other side of it is, in order to get some of those risk numbers, you have to drink, you know, PFAS contaminated water 50 gallons a day, every day of your life. You know, which I think we all recognize is probably not what most people do.
Right.
You know, so it's just like Diet Coke sodas years ago. You know, you had to drink 10 diet sodas every day of your life to see a negative impact. But, you know, we all know everybody's physiology is different and it affects some better than others. So, you know, unfortunately, the epidemiology side hasn't necessarily caught up with our ability to detect and measure some of these compounds. Because, you know, quite honestly, who's going to volunteer to be the guinea pig to drink, you know, PFAS-laden water every day so that they can, you know, the doctors can study the health effects? So, you know, what they have to do is they have to go into communities where there are issues, and then they try to do retrospective epidemiology and say, all right, we're seeing a rise in these cases, there's PFAS there, were these people drinking PFAS-contaminated water? And right now, there's a study that Silent Spring is doing in Hyannis, because, you know, the Hyannis water system was really the first water system on the Cape that detected PFAS contamination a number of years ago. So they are just now starting, I think over the course of this summer, they actually started looking for volunteers in the Hyannis Water District who got that PFAS water to see if they can make a connection between elevated levels of certain conditions and drinking the water. And that's how they have to develop that. You know, so it's tough. I mean, to answer your question, I can't give you a good answer. You know,
Can you
know, I've
detect
worked in Chatham for 34 years. I drink very little of the water here in Chatham, just because, you know, I work here. I don't drink a lot of the water. But, you know, if you live here and you drink a lot of water every day and, you know, you're using it for cooking, one of the problems with PFAS is when you cook, especially things like pasta, you know, where you're boiling it in water, it tends to concentrate the PFAS into the, you know, those kind of, so, you know, does that mean if I drink, you know, if I eat pasta once or twice a month, cooked in that water, is that problematic? We just don't know.
Can you detect elevated PFAS levels in the liver and other organs in people? And like lead, you can detect lead in the hair, and if somebody's got lead poisoning from drinking water with too
Right.
much lead in it, you can easily identify that. Do they detect elevated PFAS
They
levels?
can detect PFAS, I believe, in the blood, yes. So there is some of that going on, yeah.
In the interest of time, I'd like to suggest that we move the agenda. I think this question of groundwater, understanding groundwater and how it works and its health implications is an important one that we will be talking more about in the future, I expect. I want to thank Debbie for coming tonight and introducing this issue to us. I know we're going to get a handout from you.
I doubt if I'm introducing it, but I'm just
But you're causing us,
reinforcing
you're causing us to
your board's interests.
refocus on it, and I think that's a good thing. And we'll review the information you provided, and I'm sure that we as a board will have additional discussions about, I've got some ideas in my mind, some questions I would like to ask in the future. So thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me the time.
You're very welcome. So are we okay with moving ahead? Bob, was there anything else you were dying to say that you want to still bring up before we move?
The only thing, well, just on the water issue, there was a study probably 20 years ago now, under the Board of Health's purview, where there were a number of monitoring wells that were located around Chatham. And I think it was maybe some state funding or something that enabled us to get those wells installed and then sample them. That's certainly something we can kind of resurrect and talk about whether or not, because they were broadly spaced around Chatham, specifically for the purpose of looking at the groundwater conditions and seeing if there was any contaminants of concern. So we could certainly, kind of pull that off the shelf and see if it makes sense to think about, redoing something like that again, to gather up-to-date data. I'd have no idea what the costs and all would be. Some of the wells, may not be usable anymore, but, hopefully they're still there. So anyway, just something else for the board to think about if you want to go, kind of in that direction.
All right,
All right?
thank you. All right,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
it's Gloria Freeman.
hello.
I would like to request that you place an update on water contamination on each of your meeting agendas in the future, just as you have with COVID updates. Would that be possible?
Anything's possible. I think Gloria, we would have to talk among ourselves and decide whether we'd like to do that. It's a suggestion that we can talk about. I don't want to give you an answer right now without consulting the board, but
Of course.
but thank you for that suggestion, and we will certainly consider it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's move to the next agenda item, which is our update and discussion of COVID-19 with Dr. Duncanson.
Okay,
where are
so
we?
as of yesterday, I didn't do today, I did as of yesterday. We have 343 cases in Chatham. We've gone up 2 cases since last week's Board of Select Board update, because we had 341 cases as of then. We have 6 cases so far in August of this year, which is more than we had in August of last year. Last year, we had 4 cases in August. We've got 6 so far, and we're only halfway through the month. Of those 6 cases, 4 out of the 6 were unvaccinated. 2 of those being youngsters who are not eligible for the vaccine yet. 1 person I know was not vaccinated, and 1 other individual who was a resident at Liberty Commons, they didn't give their vaccination status, although I suspect, given how aggressive Liberty Commons was at the beginning, I would suspect they probably were vaccinated. So that would give us 2 vaccinated people and 4 unvaccinated people out of the 6 that we have. Our positivity rate is currently, as of last Thursday, because the state only updates that information once a week, the Chatham positivity rate was 1.39%, which is the lowest on the Cape.
That's a good number.
That is a good number. We continue, that's the 2nd week in a row that we had the lowest on the Cape. The Barnstable County percent positivity is 3.93, so we're roughly a third of the county as a whole. And the state's 14-day positivity rate was 2.69, so we're about half what the state had. So, knock on plastic wood, Chatham is in pretty good shape. Now, we're always looking at the data kind of retrospectively. Things could have changed in the last couple days, but we haven't seen a lot of confirmed cases come in. We were made aware over the weekend and today of 3 businesses that were impacted by positive COVID cases. We received a report of a positive test in an employee at Marion's Pie Shop, Larry's PX, and then Lily's downtown. They all notified us. They all closed down. If you remember, you changed your regulation last spring. You got rid of the mandatory closure requirement, but the mandatory reporting requirement is still there. So they did notify Judy over the weekend, as they are required to do. But they had all closed down. They were all either testing the rest of their employees or making arrangements to test the rest of their employees. They were all doing deep cleaning and all. So all the things that before we mandated they do, they're now all doing anyway, because I think, everyone in the business community is aware of the Delta variant and how easily it's spread and whatnot. And so, they all jumped on it very quickly. Some of them aren't open certain days of the week anyway, so the timing was good, if you will.
Bob, these cases were in employees,
These cases were in employees, yes.
okay,
Yep.
who we can assume live here.
I
No.
wouldn't make that assumption because I don't
Okay.
think any of the employees that have been involved have shown up. Remember, the data that we have access to in the state system is only Chatham residents,
Okay.
and I don't think any of these people have shown up, so the chances are they are not Chatham residents. But yeah, so if
But they were not, I guess my intent was to say that they were area residents, not visitors.
Yes, yeah, I assume they live on Cape Cod as opposed to transmitting across the Cape.
Because
but-
part of what I've been thinking about recently is the waning summer season. I mean, we're already to mid-August, and to the degree that there might be greater risks of COVID spread, having a lot of outside visitors coming to Chatham, that should begin to relatively go down, I would think, as the number of vacationers goes down.
Yeah,
which
I mean,
is-
I would hope so.
Mhm.
I get concerned, as you probably did, seeing the picture that was in the paper, the last week's Chronicle, the band concert. Yes, it was outside, but I think I saw one person in the picture that I could tell was wearing a mask.
Okay.
People were packed like they were pre-COVID. So, I saw the picture and I just kind of got that, the hair on the back of my neck stood up saying, keep our fingers crossed that we don't see an issue. And then there was also the picture in the previous week of the summer recreation program, the community center, all the kids standing outside taking a picture, not wearing masks. But again, they were outside. I'm sure everybody is aware we had that incident with a positive employee at the community center. And then we ended up testing all the staff at the community center. And we only had the one positive. We only had the one person that we already knew was positive. We confirmed that through a PCR test. The other 24 out of the 25 were all negative, including all the summer rec program employees that work directly with the kids. They all came out negative, which was great. So it looked like we dodged a potential bullet there. So that was good news. And I must say that everybody from the recreation department and everybody jumped on it right away, and we got that resolved quickly. And, we canceled the summer rec program for the rest of that week. It was the last week of their season anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I think, I've gotten a number of calls or emails from people saying, is Chatham considering bringing back a mask mandate indoors? And my response to them is that the Board of Health has discussed it at your last meeting. You're discussing it pretty much at all your meetings. But, based on the numbers that we're seeing in our low % positivity rate, I'm not ready to come to you and say, I'm recommending it. We know that businesses can do it on their own if they want to. We have the CDC and the state's guidance. We have our message boards still up on Main Street, especially for unvaccinated folks. So, like I say, I'm not ready to come to you and say, yeah, we need to call an emergency meeting and have you guys reinstitute a mask mandate indoors. We're just, luckily our numbers are low, and hopefully, as you say, we're getting to the end of the main tourist season, and that risk will decrease. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Questions, comments?
Is the businesses reporting positive employees is a guideline or
No, that's your order.
That's
That's your Board of Health order.
that's order is still in effect? So
That
they have
order
to-
is still in effect, right?
All right.
Remember, you got rid of the mandatory closure period, but we kept the mandatory
gonna-
reporting.
We're going to assume they're reporting. And then, so all these businesses, they closed, they tested, and they did a deep clean, and then
Yes.
opened up. Are they all open up again now?
I don't think Marion's is, because they're normally closed on Mondays anyway.
Gotcha.
So like I say, some of them are closed 1 or 2 days a week,
Right.
because they haven't been able to get enough staff or whatever, so, you know.
Yeah, Larry's PX, I believe, is reopened, but
Yes, Larry's was
Lily's, I
reopened.
think Lily's is gonna be closed until Wednesday.
Right. They wanted to have time to get all their staff tested, and they couldn't make the arrangement
Good point,
quickly, so.
good point.
Yeah.
Didn't the CDC come out today and...
Get your mic in front of you,
Oh,
please.
didn't the CDC come out today and recommend that everyone wear a mask indoors in Massachusetts, whether you're vaccinated or not?
Yeah, CDC has come out and said, you know, that's what they had said originally a couple of weeks ago anyway. Everyone in areas of high or sustained transmission. And remember, when they first came out, Barnstable County was the only county in Massachusetts that was high. Now the entire state is either high or sustained, every county in Mass. So yeah, under the CDC recommendations, they would suggest that because of that, everyone, vaccinated or unvaccinated, should wear a mask inside. Yeah, that's been their requirement now for, or not requirement, but their guidance for a couple of weeks.
Right.
There's no mandate at this point for employees to wear masks in health, in food service establishments.
No.
Or, yeah, but many do.
Many do.
And I've been impressed that the food stores, Stop and Shop, you know, it looks like about a third of customers are wearing masks now.
An increasing number, I might
People
add.
are, you know, when you read that 470 people in Provincetown developed COVID positivity, and 75% of them were fully vaccinated, and 80% of the fully vaccinated ones were symptomatic. Fever, cough, muscle aches, but only about 4 were hospitalized.
Right.
And so,
Well,
you know, that shows that the vaccine does work. You know,
Yep.
people aren't getting back, hospitalized in large numbers, but I don't want to get COVID positive and
Well,
be sick.
how about what I've been reading, and you may have seen this as well, there are a lot of questions about long COVID
Yeah.
occurring in previously vaccinated individuals who subsequently do get infected and have a breakthrough infection, and how many or percentage of those individuals don't quite shake the infection the way we would expect them to. And that's causing a lot of concern, at least in my mind.
Yep.
And children, you know, nobody wants your children, your grandchildren,
Right.
to get symptomatic COVID, and the Delta seems to be causing more disease in children
Yes.
than the prior variants.
Yep.
Yes.
Despite the fact that on Fox News, a prominent physician said that no virus is more virulent or transmissible than the original strain of the virus. As it mutates, it becomes more benign. I mean, you hear these crazy things, and people hear it, and that's why people don't get vaccinated.
Yeah, I
don't
mean, the
wear
bad
masks.
news is the Delta variant's around. The good news is it's leading to a substantial increase in vaccinations. You know, they did almost 1 million vaccinations in one day over the weekend, which we hadn't
Good.
seen in 4 or 5 weeks. So vaccinations are going up, which is good.
Which is very good. Other comments or
I
questions?
have a question. What does the sign say at the Rotary? Is it still saying if you're unvaccinated?
Yes, it still says if you're unvaccinated, please wear a mask indoors. Yeah.
Why
Indoors
wouldn't
or
you
anywhere?
Change it to what the
Indoors?
CDC is recommending.
It may not say indoors. It may be for anywhere. Yeah, we
Just
could.
open air. I mean,
Yeah.
if you come to town and you're unvaccinated, put a mask on.
Right,
Okay,
because that was the guidance at the time for unvaccinated.
okay.
Are you thinking of changing the message based on what the CDC is now saying?
We could certainly consider it. You know, unfortunately, with the signs like that, we're limited to how many words we can put up at a time. So it's got to be a pretty short message,
Tidy,
especially as
yeah.
people driving by. They can't stop and read it for 5 minutes.
Right.
Or even like CDC recommends wearing a mask, all
Yeah.
wear a mask
Yeah.
indoors.
Yep, we'll certainly, let me think about what we can come up with and say in a couple of words or less, and, yeah, okay.
Can I ask one question? Yeah. Is it possible for us to get an email when some places had an infection in it, had a case?
When they have a positive case?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I've
we
had a
can-
couple of people,
we can send
ask
it
me
out.
about it, and I'm,
Yeah, you don't want to be caught unaware.
No, not-
So we should get a heads up.
Yes, the two of these happened over the weekend, and I neglected to let you
just if we,
know.
just if we know so that,
Just so you know, Pates also has a couple of employees that are tested positive.
Yeah.
Are they open or closed now? Because I heard the rumor before about Pates, but
They
Yeah,
were,
those were positives like a week and a half or 10 days ago, I think.
yeah, it was about a week
Yeah,
ago.
as far as I know, they have reopened. They're closed on Mondays anyway. So,
but I would agree with Ron, it helps us if you notify us about a prominent
I'll try-
business.
I'll-
In real time.
Because people immediately start asking us questions, and it's a little funny not to know.
Yes,
Yep.
I was doing that before, and I kind of neglected to keep you in the loop this round. So
Thank you.
I'll do better.
You're going to get one demerit, all in favor, one demerit, say yes. Okay.
You know, I'm sitting on the beach and I'm getting these emails, so.
yeah.
Just kidding.
All right, are we done? I think we've covered the COVID update, okay? We have a little bit more business to do. We have minutes we have to approve from August 2nd. Can I get them, or first of all, are there any edits or questions or comments on those minutes before we accept them? If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 2nd?
Motion to approve?
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes of August 2nd, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Well, we're at the end of the meeting. Unless somebody has something they'd like to bring up as a final thought, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just asked, any update on Mill Hill Road? I drove down Mill Hill Road yesterday.
You sure?
Updates on Mill Hill Road. I drove down Mill Hill Road yesterday, and it appears totally unchanged. There's a big trailer full of trash.
Yeah, he's kind of neatened up the junk. He's got 3 trailers. I actually drove down today. He's got 3 trailers full of stuff. But there are some assorted piles, and he's kind of pushed some stuff a little bit back off the road. But really substantially nothing has changed.
No updates from town council?
No. We have not had an update from town council, so
Yeah,
I
we will get back with town council. I know, I think he was indisposed for a little bit of time, and so, because I had a couple other things pending that took a little bit longer than I thought, so, but we'll get back in touch with him.
Don't
and-
don't let it get idle
Yeah, no, we
and
won't.
pushed to the back.
Yep,
Because I think
no.
we, as board members, are very interested in seeing motion forward,
Yep.
forward
yeah,
motion on this.
we definitely, we need to get back with him
Yeah.
on that, so.
Snowball, just real quick, not a big thing, but the Enterococcus in Oyster Pond, do we know where it's coming from, or animals, septic?
Short answer to your question is no.
Okay.
I've been racking my brains because when we got the first hit in Oyster Pond, I went back and reviewed all the data from 2003, and we'd never had a count that high before. Now I've had 2 high counts in the space of 2 weeks. I did grab a couple samples out of the storm drain. If you're familiar with Oyster Pond Beach, there is a storm drain just on the right-hand side.
By the town landing there, correct? Down back behind Village Market?
No, you're
That's-
thinking of Oyster Pond Furlong.
Right beside the
Yes.
parking
I'm
lot.
talking about the bathing beach at the east end of the pond.
Okay.
There is a storm drain right
Right
next to the
there.
bathing beach that actually goes all the way up Main Street and whatnot. So, to account for the high counts that I've seen at the beach, or not I've seen, but the lab has reported at the beach, it's got to be a pretty concentrated source. So I said, all right, maybe the storm drain, because it's right there. I took tests out of that storm drain, the flow coming out of it, very low. So the flow, the counts there were not high enough to account for what's happening at the beach. I've spoken to the harbor master about, could it have been a boat going by that dumped a porta potty overboard?
Exactly.
It's always possible. 2 weeks in a row doesn't seem to make sense. We haven't seen anything else. The harbor master hasn't seen anything unusual. The shellfish warden hasn't seen anything unusual. I haven't seen anything unusual. So right now, I don't have a good explanation for it. I'm waiting. The county has been testing pretty much every day. They don't take samples on Saturdays or Sundays. So they did sample again today. So hopefully tomorrow we'll have some more data and see what we can figure out what's going on. But it doesn't make sense because, like I say, that beach is probably one of the ones we've monitored more than any other in Chatham over the years, between either bathing beach or shellfish growing area. And the kind of counts that the county is getting, we've never seen in the last 10,
Wow.
15 years.
Are there multiple sites in the pond that are sampled, or just?
No, they only sample the one location right at the bathing beach.
All right.
So if we get another high count, or maybe just for my own information, I do have a number of other stations that ring that whole eastern end of the pond that we've used over the years for other studies. I may just go out and collect some samples from all those other spots.
And see if there's a
to
gradient.
see if there's something else coming from somewhere. But, we have sewer in that entire area. There's been no sewer breaks that would contribute anything. We do have stormwater that goes into that pond. But, we've worked on a number of those stormwater problems over the years and corrected them. We did the one down at Oyster Pond Furlong. We've done some at Stage Harbor Road and Cedar Street. So over the years, we've been chipping away at it to improve conditions. And that's why the pond is now open for shellfishing and whatnot when it used to be closed all the time. So, yeah, I don't have a good explanation.
did you find-
Enterococci are more human-specific. So, I don't think it's dogs and whatnot, and it'd be hard for them to account for levels like we're seeing, so.
Did you find a source at Bucks Creek? Did you find a source at Bucks Creek?
No, Bucks Creek is more, we know that Bucks Creek is more attributable to the fact that it drains about a 50-acre marsh system. And marshes are notoriously high in bacteria. That's why marshes are so good environments. So more than likely, that's the reason for Bucks Creek. That Bucks Creek is not unusual. We've seen the same problem, Bucks Creek, pretty much every year. So that is not unusual. Oyster Pond is unusual.
Do you monitor Oyster River? Like
We
around
don't,
where
because
the
there's no-
marinas, where the marinas are, and, there's
We
a
don't as
marsh
part of the
that drains-
bathing beach program, because there's no bathing beaches there. The Division of Marine Fisheries does do it as part of the shellfish program. They have a number of stations that start in Oyster Pond and go down Oyster River through Stage Harbor into Mill Pond, Little Mill Pond. But they don't test, they only required to test those areas 5 times a year.
But the water flushes in and out through the river, so.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
If one of those marinas is, if somebody's
It
dumping.
wouldn't account for the
Wouldn't be that
count
high.
that we're seeing that high, that far away.
All right.
I mean, I'm seeing counts that tell me it's got to be something right close. Because the counts are in the thousands, which is unusual.
Elaine Gibbs, are you on the call?
Yes, thank you. I came in late to the meeting. I live basically at Oyster Pond, so I drive by there every day. I didn't go by today, so maybe things have changed. But the sign there that says no swimming is extremely small. It's about the third of the size of the no shellfishing sign. And there's only one that I saw. And there are probably 30 signs down there between the sharks and the seals and the lifeguard on duty and such. I don't think people are seeing it. Every day that I drove by, there were 20 or 30 people in the water despite that sign, and there were lifeguards on duty. I did ask the lifeguards, and she said, well, it's just a suggestion. We can't tell them to get out of the water. But I don't think people are seeing the signs. And these are this is Children's Beach. I mean, these are little toddlers that are in this water. That's why they go there, because they don't want them in the waves. So I think we need more signs, and they need to be along the shoreline, just above high tide, so that people can actually see them, because I really don't think people would be swimming in there if they realized how high those counts are. Because if the kids have a cut or something, they may not be drinking the water, but, there are a whole host of ways that you can contract something. So I would ask that that be looked into.
I can tell you that we are looking at getting bigger signs. We have been accused in the past, as Ms. Gibbs just alluded to, of sign pollution at some of our beaches and all, because there are so many signs. But we are looking into getting bigger signs for this particular purpose. It's, I don't want to say it's difficult. It's sometimes defies common sense to some extent. The state regulations, remember, this is a state regulation we're working under here. The state regulation says you need to post it at the most common place where people are entering the beach. All right? So, like for a place like Harding's Beach, you could simply put the sign, and in fact, that's where it is, on the gate shack. All right? To me, that makes no sense, but anyway. So, the sign was put down there. It is near the high tide line. It is near the path that most people take coming from the parking lot to the beach. The other side of it is, under state statute, we are only required to post the no swimming. We do not have to aggressively or actively keep people out of the water. So we don't have to go down there and tell the lifeguards, string up barbed wire and keep everybody out of the water. The state law only says that the beach operator has to post it. And that's what I say, in a place like Harding's Beach, it could be up at the gate shack. That's where you could put a sign. And, so did it always make common sense? No. And I reconfirmed with the state last week to make sure that my understanding was still accurate, that we don't have to go down and tell people, don't go in the water. It's one of these things, we post it, we advise you of what the issue is, but if you still want to go swimming, you can still go swimming.
Bob, we pay the lifeguard salary. We could have them at least go down and ask the people, are you aware that this is posted no bathing?
Yes, and they
I
have
think that
been
makes
doing
sense.
that. They have been doing that.
Okay.
Yes, but they do not, they've been instructed, do not get into a confrontation with somebody.
Well,
You can
that-
have that conversation with them, but if somebody wants to go in the water, that's as far as you go, because we don't
Could I
want
just ask one more
these young
question?
people getting into arguments with people.
Part of the problem is when you have lifeguards on duty, it gives people the impression you can go swimming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not suggesting that there shouldn't be lifeguards, because people may do it anyway. But I think that what the state law requires versus what we should be doing. Now, maybe that's changed since I talked to lifeguards, because they were not telling anybody anything. And as a grandparent, if I had missed that sign, I would have very much appreciated the lifeguards coming down. And I know it's hard for them because people come and go, but there just has to be a better way. Again, more signs where they're posted, there's multiple signs at, I've seen them on beaches where there's 3 or 4 along the high tide mark. And so that no matter where you're sitting on the beach, you're going to see it. Because some people don't necessarily they come around the other side of the bathroom area.
Right.
So I think that we owe it to young families to let them know and be a little bit more proactive.
I will tell you, I drove by Oyster Pond twice today, once mid-morning about 10 o'clock, and then once again about 1:30. There was nobody there. Nobody in the water, 2 or 3 people laying out in the sun, and that was it. I was surprised.
All right.
Because last week when we first posted, I'd gone by, there were more people there.
Over the
So,
weekend at each time.
Yeah.
So hopefully they're seeing the signs, but if we could be a little more proactive, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Well, that could
Elaine.
also be a liability issue for the town. If it's not posted adequately and somebody goes, and if the contamination is this great and somebody gets sick and they find out, oh, well, they knew that this was like swimming in a in sewage, and they didn't tell us, and they didn't have a lot of signs. We came in from the other side, we never saw the sign. They'll sue the town.
Well, that's why the signs are generally put right in the center of the
Right.
beach area so that, you
Yeah.
know, but we're, like I say,
Well-
we're looking at getting bigger signs. You know, the other side of it is, because this is what I did my graduate studies on, it's a 24-hour test. So it's bad water quality on Tuesday. You don't get the results until Wednesday. People have already been in the water on Tuesday because you didn't know it was bad.
Right.
You get the results on Wednesday, and then under the state statute, we have 24 hours from then, but from the time the lab notifies us, we have 24 hours to post it. You know, we usually try to get out there that day. As soon as we get word, we usually try to get out and put the signs up and not wait till the next day. But, you know, I hate to say it, it's an imperfect public health system.
Right.
But people have been working for the last 50 years to get an instantaneous indicator, you know, way to
Right.
test the water instantaneous. Trust me, nobody's come up with one yet. Because I
Is
know the
it-
people who worked on it that tried to come up with something, and it just,
Would it
unfortunately.
be fair to say, I don't want to put words in board members' mouths, but would it be fair to say that the Board of Health would urge the Recreation Department to inform lifeguards who are on duty in posted areas to at least verbally remind or inform bathers who they see?
Yes, I've already had that, I had that conversation earlier today with the Park and Rec director to
Okay.
make sure that the right message was getting out.
Okay,
And
then there's
he's
no
going to
need, no need for us
reinforce
to.
that tomorrow morning, because all the lifeguards get together every morning before
Perfect.
they go out. He's going to
Mhm.
reinforce the proper message.
Okay,
Yes.
good, thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll
Ed?
second that.
Second from Carol. All right, I'm totally meetinged out right now personally, but, okay, all in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? None? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.